All right. Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start by saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I guess the first order of business is to announce that the permanent chairperson meeting and budget vote chairperson is Mrs. Marcia Monday. The inspectors of election are poll workers certified by Lewis County Office of Board of Elections, Joellen Dukrith, Susan Pete, Donna Wheeler, and Carol Putman. The clerk is Mrs. Brenda Shelmadine. And at this time, I would like to introduce Mrs. Marcia Monday, and I will turn the meeting over to her at this point, and she will take it from here. Go ahead, Marcia.
Okay, good evening. I start here by reading the meeting notice, which was posted in the papers. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the qualified voters of the Copenhagen Central School District, Lewis County, Copenhagen, New York, will be held virtually on Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m. for the presentation of the budget. The hearing can be viewed and commented on the CPS Night Media YouTube channel. The budget and the tax exemption report may be obtained by any resident of the district during the 14 days immediately preceding the annual meeting, except Saturday, Sunday, or holiday during the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. The document will be available on the school website, Facebook, Copenhagen Central School page, Parent Square, as well as mailed to our current newsletter mailing list or other requests. Notice is hereby given that the annual budget vote and the school board election of the qualified voters of the Copenhagen Central School District, Village of Copenhagen, Copenhagen, New York, will be held at the Copenhagen Central School District, located at 3020 Mechanic Street, Copenhagen, New York, 13626, in said district on Tuesday, May 18, 2021, between the hours of 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. prevailing time, at which time the polls will be open to vote by digital scan upon the following items. To elect 2 members of the Board of Education to succeed the following current members. Lynn A. Murray, 5-year term, 7/1/16 to 6/30/21. And Robert F. Stakel, 5-year term, 7/1/16, 6/30/21. Further notice is hereby given that at said annual budget vote and election to be held on May 18, 2021, the following propositions will be submitted. Proposition 1, resolved that the Board of Education of the Copenhagen Central School District be hereby authorized to expend the sums set forth in the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 and to levy the necessary tax for the requisite portion thereof to be raised by taxation on the taxable property of the district. Proposition 2, shall the district be authorized to provide transportation of Head Start children from Copenhagen Central School to Lavo Head Start and return on an existing BOCES bus route? Shall the district be authorized to provide transportation of Head Start children from Copenhagen Central School to their homes in the afternoon on an existing PM bus route? This will demand no additional cost to the district. Now, at this time, I'm going to read the rules of order in public meetings. This is revised for a pandemic. When a viewer wishes to comment, they shall put their name and address in the comments section. The presiding officer shall designate a person to read the comments. 2, the speakers shall confine themselves to the question under debate and avoid personalities. 3, no one shall comment upon the subject under discussion more than twice, and no person shall comment a second time until all have had a first chance to speak. 4, all remarks shall be addressed to the chair. The right of each individual to comment without interruption is paramount. No calls for expression of sentiment shall be made except upon request by the chair. If decorum is not maintained, the chair may adjourn the meeting until such time as assurances are provided against repeated offenses. 5, if any person commenting or otherwise transgresses the rules, the presiding officer shall call the person to order, in which case the person shall immediately refrain from commenting. Such a person shall not comment again unless to further explain or proceed in order. 6, questions upon these rules shall be decided by the presiding officer without debate. And now I'd like to request the clerk to read the qualification of voters.
The qualifications for residents voting on the budget and candidates for members of the Board of Education are: number 1, citizen of the United States; number 2, 18 years of age; and number 3, a resident of the school districts 30 days preceding the date of the vote.
Okay, now I would like to announce that the budget for the 2021-2022 school year has been duly adopted by the Board of Education, distributed to district voters in accordance with education law, and will be voted on from 12 noon to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, May 18, 2021. Now I request that the superintendent of schools and the business manager to review the budget document and announce that YouTube viewers may post questions and they will be addressed.
Thank you, Marcia, and good evening, everyone. And we are going to go through, actually, Mr. Luther will go through the budget at this point. This is just a kickoff, pictures of all the great things that go on in our school. Learning is fun at Copenhagen, and I do believe that our children enjoy coming to school. So having said that, Mr. Luther, the agenda is now present, and you may take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Cottle. Welcome everyone who's decided to tune in and anyone that views this in the future. My name is Scott Luther. I'm the business manager at Copenhagen Central School. I will go through the details of the budget that corresponds to the paperwork that was mailed and that is accessible on our website. In front of you, you'll see a slide right now that shows the agenda items that I will cover tonight. And without further ado, I will jump right into it. So rather than wait till the end to share a summary, I thought I would do something a little bit different this year. I wanted to give everybody that views this an opportunity to have some points to be thinking about as I go through the details of the budget. These are some summary highlights that I want to point out. So my number one goal for this year, given the challenges that everyone has faced, was to have our year-over-year totals to be as flat as possible and to minimize any of our expenses as much as possible above and beyond what we normally do, and only have the extraordinary material increases be associated to our capital project that was approved last year. And that's for both expenses and revenues. Another thing that I think is very important, and it was a goal of mine when I started at this district, was to eliminate the need for parents and families to provide materials with their students on the first day of school. So this budget accomplishes that, and you should not be seeing, as a parent or a family of a student here, you should not be seeing start of the year list. We are going to be purchasing all of the school supplies that are required for all students in the district. Another thing to take note of is we are expecting a nominal revenue increase in state aid. However, there is federal aid that is currently being allocated to districts. It's very preliminary at this point in time, and I think it's important for everyone to know that I did not build this budget anticipating that aid because it is so new, and a lot of the prerequisites to get access to those funds are not fully clarified. I did not include that in this budget. However, if it is received, which I expect it to be, it will indeed reduce our appropriated fund balance, which we will get into shortly. And as always, I think it's very important for our district to continue to expand the curriculum and programs that students have access to. And this budget does exactly that, as we always strive to do. So at a high level, to give everyone access to what I have available to me, we have a number of resources that are available to business managers at all school districts as we prepare our budget. When I first started at this district, I leveraged these resources significantly, being that this will be my second, or this will be my third year here. I don't lean on them nearly as much as I've come to learn about the intricacies of our district, but these are all available to us, and they are extremely useful. And when we get things that are entirely new at our, with regards to finances at a school district, we have a plethora of resources available to us. So our budget is never created entirely in a vacuum. Moving on to the property tax report card. This grid shows everyone a snippet of the full property tax report card that is available on our district website. At a very high level, it shows the increase of 4.1% year over year of our budget, and the majority of that expense increase is actually directly correlated to the expense of the capital project that was approved last year. And subsequently, you'll see in a very short time, there is building aid revenue that also directly correlates to that. So it is meant to offset that expense. We have proposed a tax levy increase of 1%. Currently, our tax cap this year was actually calculated at 2.67%. Our Board of Education, it was extremely important to our Board of Education to keep the levy increase as minimal as possible. So we have chosen as a district to not go out at the full 2.67% and only go out at 1% for a relatively minimal impact to tax holders or taxpayers. For enrollment, last year we projected 461 students. We actually came in at 470 starting on March 1. And I have conservatively projected our enrollment to be somewhat the same. I did increase it by 5 students. And finally, the Consumer Price Index, which is provided to us by the state of New York, has dropped to 1.23%. On to our tax levy history and our tax cap. On the left-hand side, you'll see a grid that shows the last 15 years of our tax levy history and what the delta was, or the increase. And you'll see this year that we have increased it by 1%, or $17,708. On the right-hand side, I'm just going to blow this up for everyone to see. The top portion of the grid in the top red box that you'll see here shows the actual calculation of our tax cap and what the district would be authorized to levy of 2.67%. You'll also note that I'm showing columns for last year, columns for next year, and I have this tax cap projected out for 20 years. It's very unrealistic to expect to have accurate projections for 20 years. However, it's very important to be able to see in the future how our tax cap is going to affect the finances of our district. Now, this formula consists of many, many variables, and anytime we make district decisions on where we spend money, it's critical that we input those decisions into a model that shows us how it's going to affect the tax cap if it's one of those variables that affects it. So if you recall last year, or 2 years ago rather, we had a significant negative tax cap. I've made a considerable effort to smooth out our future tax caps with the models that I've created. And every year and multiple times throughout the year, I will evaluate those models and continue to try to keep that as stable as possible. The calculation on the bottom that you see inside of the red square is the actual implementation of the 1% that was authorized by the Board of Education, as opposed to the 2.67%. And then to get into the details of the budget. So this is a graphical representation of where the money at a school district comes from, particularly ours. You can see the largest piece of the pie is state and federal aid. You will also see the property tax levy highlighted in yellow, which makes up 15% of our revenue. We also receive a decent amount of money from pilots, which is the result of the windmills that you see around our district. And then I have $91,000 or 1% of other income that we are expecting. And then to balance the budget, as I had mentioned before, I'm not taking into consideration any of the proposed federal aid that we might have access to. So to balance our budget, I have asked the board to authorize appropriating $781,279 to balance our budget. And this is just grid form of the representation that I just showed in a graphical form, so you can see the totals. You'll note that I do show that we have conservative projections of federal and state aid to be increased, but the majority of the increase in our aid is a direct result of the building aid from the capital project that I had mentioned. Moving on to where we spend the money for our district. Now, the New York State requires that school districts deliver the budget proposal in three main components, which is the administrative, the program, and the capital components. So to put this in layman's terms, the administrative component it consists of expenses for the staff and all of the costs that keeps the lights on within the district. The program component is everything that we keep the lights on for, which includes the salary for the teachers and all of our staffs, the supplies, the equipment and textbooks that students use, all of our transportation operating costs, and all of our instructional programs. And lastly, the capital component is everything that we keep the lights on in. So that would be our facility, our bus purchases that we make, all of our custodial staff and our facility costs, our debt service, which is like our mortgage, our lease expenditures, any legal judgments that we have, repairs, construction, renovation, and so forth. So I'll go into each one of these. We'll start with the administrative component. And again, just a reminder, that's the staff and the costs that the district incurs to keep the lights on for our students. And here's a grid summary of the line items within our administrative component. You'll notice that we have an increase of $57,286 or 4.72%. I'll go into each one of these. Under the Board of Education section, this includes a portion of the salary for the district clerk. We also picked up a very good service for board policy updates to continuously keep our board policies up to date in a living, breathing document. It also includes expenses for our annual meeting and vote, BOCES workshops, and legal notices. Under central administration and finance, this includes salaries for the superintendent, all of the business administration for the district, the treasurer, a portion of the salary for the secretary to the superintendent, and our tax collection. It also includes expenses for our audit, our state aid planning, which is a financial resource that our district leverages, as well as cooperative purchasing through BOCES, which is a service that we leverage to gain access to very competitive and very good pricing for all of the supplies and materials for the school. For curriculum development and supervision, this would include salaries for all of our principals, our secretaries for the principals, memberships for associations for those individuals, as well as supplies to run all of the offices. Under legal and personnel, this includes any salaries or expenses related to personnel record retention, which we actually don't have any salaries directly related to that. However, we do have legal fees that are related to personnel and access to legal counsel via BOCES. We contract that service out. In other central services, this would include our school insurance, our school dues, postage costs that our district incurs, as well as a BOCES provided service for data processing and administration, which includes our student management services. And finally, for this component, the employee benefits includes all of the ERS, TRS, or the employee retirement system, teacher retirement system, Social Security, Medicare, workers' compensation, health, dental insurance, and all of that combined for all of the employees that are within that administrative component. Moving on to the program component, which is everything that we keep the lights on for. So our salary and benefits for teachers and staff, the textbooks, the equipment, the supplies, all of our transportation is within this component. And here's a summary of the grid of the entire program. So the teaching, regular, and special education includes all of the salaries for instructional and non-instructional employees, which includes our teachers, our aides, our nurse, our counselors, advisors, coaches, and chaperones. It also includes all of the instructional equipment and hardware that is used inside of our school. It includes the service and the maintenance contracts, medical services, dues, fees, and subscriptions, field trips, conferences for all of the staff, and professional development. It also includes all of our students, or the expenses for all of our students attending BOCES programs and special education services at BOCES. You'll also note that there's a line item here in BOCES that has a delta of $137,000. This is not just the program services that are at BOCES. This is actually where you'll see that line item of all of the comprehensive school supplies that we are purchasing through BOCES. It's not a significant increase directly related to the supplies, but I did want to point out because I mentioned it in my initial budget summary slide. In the transportation section, this would include all of our expenses for transportation to get students to and from school, as well as our transportation director, and all of the service supplies that are required to support the operation and maintenance of our transportation department. And finally, in the program, at the end of the program component, we have all of the benefits for all of the staff and the employees that are within this component, which again includes ERS, TRS, FICA, Medicare, health, dental insurance, workers' comp, and unemployment. And the final component, being the capital component, is everything that we keep the lights on in. So this is our facility. It includes our bus purchases, our debt, or our mortgage, if you will. So in the grid view, you will see, I'll go into each of these line items as well. You'll see in capital transfers, there is nothing anticipated here in the transfer to capital fund. I had kept this in here just for reference purposes. And then in the near future, we will begin a capital outlay program at this district. It was not conducive to do that this year. Under debt service, you'll see that line item increase. That's the direct result of the capital project that was approved last year. It also includes all of the bond principal and interest payments and all of the expenses related to our debt service at our district from prior capital improvement projects. For operations and maintenance, this includes all of our expenses for our supervisor for buildings and grounds, the custodial staff, and all of the supplies required to be able to keep this place open and keep providing services for our students. We also have on the docket the purchase of 2 regular buses, which is congruent with our long-term bus purchase rotation plan. And finally, in the capital component, all of the employee benefits for all of the employees that are within that component. So all of our custodial staff, which would include their ERS, their TRS, FICA, Medicare, health and dental insurance, and so forth. And finally, in a large summary, all 3 components that are grouped together, which comprises of our total budget expenses. I'm very confident that what we put together this year and I have presented makes a very concerted effort to minimize all of the unforeseen expenses that we have. And we did everything we could to trim as much as we possibly could, but still be able to maintain all of the curriculum and the programs that our students deserve, as well as expand and provide access to some services that students didn't previously have access to. So in total, the final budget is $11,674,922. And I'll revisit the budget summary that I opened the presentation with. So again, you'll see that I did everything in my power to achieve that goal of keeping the year-over-year totals as flat as possible. We will not be having start of the year lists, so parents and families will not have to provide a plethora of supplies for their student to come to school. They will already all be here. Again, I covered that the state aid is expected to increase nominally, and a significant increase will be coming in as a result of building aid. And again, just a reminder, the federal aid that is proposed through the American Rescue Plan and the Federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act is not built into this budget, albeit we will do everything that we can to gain access to those funds once the rules of engagement are set forth by the state and the federal government. And again, we as a district continue to be as creative as possible to stretch our dollars as far as they can possibly go to expand the curriculum and programs for our students. And this budget absolutely supports that initiative. So on May 18th, we are asking for your continued support for your district with a yes vote for this budget presented. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Connell to wrap up and introduce the propositions and the Board of Education candidates, as well as the date of the vote and the vote itself.
Mr. Luther, thank you very much. Very well done. So moving forward, when you come on the 18th to vote, or if you choose to vote on an absentee ballot, you're going to vote for four things. One, Proposition 1 is our budget that Mr. Luther just explained. Proposition number 2, you'll be voting on whether we can transport Head Start students. We haven't had a Head Start student in quite a few years. If we have one, it is no additional cost to the district. And you'll be voting on 2 board members. Mr. Lynn Murray will be running unopposed again this year, and also Bob Stakel will be running unopposed as well. So those are the 4 things that you will vote for on May 18th. And we appreciate everyone coming out. The more people that vote, the better. And again, that's just this slide is a summary of what I just described. So at this point, are there any questions? And again, they can be typed into our YouTube channel. And we'll give. There are no questions. Okay. Well, again, Mr. Luther, thank you. Everybody that was watching, we appreciate it. And again, please, we encourage everybody to come out and vote on May 18th. And thank you for coming, and have a great night.
Okay, at this time,